hope you don't have any problem, and if you don't understand something, just tell me. So usually we start with the meat. Why? Because salami is made 99% with meat, and we want to know why we use some kind of breed or some kind of quality meat and not other meat. First, the most important things I want to tell you is the meat I use to make a really good salami need to be antibiotics free. Why? Because to fermented salami we use microbes, like and culture. If we find in our meat some antibiotics, this kind of things that are going to kill our culture, and we are not able to do the salami. But it's also important the quality of the breed itself. Like I like a lot to work with Duroc. Duroc, why? Because it's a really good meat, really marbling, not a lot of water inside. And the other most important thing is the quality of the life of this guy. Why? Because we know we are all animals, also the human, they are animals. So if you have a wonderful life, like you do a lot of exercise, you eat well, at the end you have a really wonderful health, Also for the pig, the same things. If they are able to run, so to run free, to have good food, better if it's vegetarian food and not derived from the animal. And actually they have a wonderful life and they produce a wonderful meat. So it's really important the breed, yes, because different breed produce different kind of flavor, but it's most important than everything is probably the quality of the life of this animal. So this is why we really tell, like, we don't want to have animal live inside cage, but we want to have animal free. Here you can see a lot of different cuts we're going to use. In Italy we tell we don't throw away anything from the pig. And actually it's true, in the past, with the hair we do the toothbrush, right now no. It was really tasty actually, but now we prefer to use the plastic, let's say this way. And yeah, from different parts of the pork actually you can find different hues, like the neck. With the neck we make the coppa, we make the capicola, so really interesting cut. The back fat actually we can do lardo, but we can do also some quality of salami like calabrese, like Milano. So some salami actually need a little bit strong fat, not really easy to melt in the process when you grind. Then we have ribs, loin. I don't think I need to talk about a lot about ribs and loin, you know very well this cut, but I want probably to spend a little bit more time in the ham, and ham is really fantastic. Is one of the best cuts you can find in pork. We can do prosciutto, we can debone the ham and do salami actually. We do, is really versatile. We can do speck, we can do a lot of different cuts. Why? Because the quality, let's say that the ratio between fat and lean is basically perfect. So we like a lot this cut. I like a lot to work with the leg. And then we have, we can go to the next one. We have other ingredients, and probably here we go a little bit more in interesting things like salt and spice. Salt. I like to tell, like, I think, in my personal opinion, salt and meat was made in the same time because they work so well together. I receive, let's say, every day mail from people around the US. They want to start to do something with, with pork meat to try to age, dry cure, or ferment it. Most of the time they want to start with something like easy. So most of the time will be a full piece of meat, so a whole muscle product. Sometimes, most of the time will be a prosciutto. And they usually ask me how much salt I need to put on the prosciutto. I don't know, like, how much is the ratio? And I tell, how much weight the prosciutto. Let's say, I don't know, 20 pounds. So put 50 pounds of salt. And I tell you, like, what? Like 20 pounds, 50 of salt, like more than the double? Yes, this is the amazing things about the pork meat. It's going to absorb the exactly quantity salt need. No 1 gram more, no 1 gram less. It's a process, it's called osmosis. So the water, the meat itself lose water and grab salt. You can leave the prosciutto covered in salt for a full week, then you just take out, rise under the water, and the prosciutto takes the exactly salt needed. So this is why I tell you they work really well together. And then another things I like a lot to work with sea salt. I know right now we have a wonderful salt around the world. I don't know, the pink one from Himalaya, the black one from Hawaii, and I see there is a green one, probably from Ireland, I don't know, but probably it's green, you know. And you know, they're all amazing, but why they have this color? Because there is some mineral inside. I'm a big fan of the sea salt. Why? Because it's pure. The taste is salt. There is not other elements like iron, like copper, is going to do an interference with the flavor you want. So you're able to be more consistent. And then spice. We can talk one full day about spice, but the things I like to tell you, especially in the traditional Italian salami, why one salami have this kind of spice inside? Easy. You need to think this salami was made the first time probably 1,000 years ago or more. So was the spice they find in the territory. In Tuscany, they do an amazing salami, it's called finocchiona with fennel inside. Why? Because in Tuscany you find fennel everywhere. It's like grow like grass. Spicy salami, usually they're made in the south of Italy. Why? Because chili pepper, cayenne, paprika, this kind of particular spice, they're easy to find. In north, a little bit different. Why? We have a lot of wine, we have a lot of this kind of particular food. So usually the salami made in the north, made especially in my region, in Piedmont, they are made with some wine, some particular flavor arriving actually from grape. Yeah. Then we talk a little bit of spice, we talk a little bit of the salt, and I want to talk a little bit about how it's made. Here is interesting. We have trimming, chopping, grinding and mixing, stuffing and tying. I want to spend just 1 second for each one. Like trimming and chopping is really important. Why? We need to keep the temperature of the meat really low, because we don't want to start the fermentation when we grind the meat. So grinding and mixing the same things, like we mix the spice, we mix the fat and the lean together, and then we stuff. We stuff inside, usually I like to stuff in a natural casing, like beef casing usually, or pork casing. We know we can use other kind of, let's say, of casing, human-made, but all natural, oh, I forgot the word in English, but by the way, collagens, thank you. And then the last one is actually pure plastic. So we have different way we can approach the stuffing, like more artisanal, so with more natural casing, or more like, let's say, industrial, so more fast with plastic casing. But the things I want to really to tell you at the end, the most important one is the fermentation. Why? Because salami is, why have this kind of flavor? Because the fermentation, because these bacteria actually, they work with the meat and they transform the meat in with another flavor, another pH, another activity water inside. The first time we did the fermentation in the history was during the Roman Empire, and actually it was a cross-contamination, it was a mistake. Why? They start to put meat in the same area where they have the cheese, and they start to touch the cheese, touch the meat, touch the cheese, touch the meat. So actually they transfer bacteria from the cheese to the meat. And they understand actually when the meat was in the same place with the cheese, change the flavor, and you have a particular, particular flavor, particular salami. Now we know why. There is bacteria, they are from the same family of the bacteria you find in the cheese. So lactobacillus, they eat sugar, they like a lot of sugar. So what we do when we start the fermentation, we put a little bit of sugar with the meat to give a good start for this guy. They eat sugar and they produce lactic acid. So let's say in the first 12 to 24 hours, the acidity of the salami become really low, like we have pH really low, like 4.8, 4.9, so acid like lemon, The salami, they are almost impossible to eat. But when the acidity reaches this kind of level, it's actually able to make the meat completely safe without the need to cook it. Why? Because the only bacteria able to survive in this kind of environment is the bacteria we like, the lactobacillus. If you have a strange guy like, I don't know, Salmonella, E. coli, this kind of guy, they're going to die. They're going to die naturally because they are not able to survive too acid. But then we don't want to sell salami with this kind of acidity, because then when you try to eat, it's not pleasant to the flavor, to your mouth. So we know how much sugar we put. We know when the sugar is finished, the bacteria start to eat the meat, and they start to do a process we call rebound. So actually they are able to survive but not to duplicate because they don't find all the food they need. So the pH grow again, they don't produce a lot of lactic acid, we have a better flavor, and actually at the end the bacteria survive. This is actually more or less what happened during the fermentation, to give you an idea. And the way you use the sugar, the way you use the hot, the warm, and the humidity, you are able to change a little bit the fermentation, so to develop different flavor. And then we have the aging. Aging is the last phase. When we leave the salami inside this huge aging room, they still losing water really slowly, and they develop the final flavor of this kind of like a cured meat, like people like a lot. Another product of the fermentation is the mold. I know usually this is the big problem. People call me and tell me, oh, I see this kind of mold on top, I see the other one is different, I don't feel comfortable. So I want to tell you, the perfection is white. When you have a white mold, it's because you do everything perfect. But we know sometimes, especially in an environment like when you leave salami inside your daily counter, it's actually hard to keep the perfect humidity and the perfect temperature. So sometimes you have this kind of different mold growing around, and can be gray, blue, sometimes also black. It's all okay, don't worry. It's just more humidity. More humidity you add, more the mold become darker. So start with the greenish, and then blue, and then black. Sometimes you have also some yellow and orange mold. Usually happen when salami they touch together or inside the plastic, so they can really breathe really well. And this kind of mold is just, like I tell you, is just a little bit more sticky, and more the smell is a little bit more intense. It's not a problem, it's just because there is not enough oxygen. So the only thing you need to wait, just take your salami, put under the warm water or cold water and wash. It's not a problem, it's completely impermeable. So you can wash, the water doesn't go inside. Then you just clean the salami, put back in your daily counter. You will see in a couple of days the white mold start to grow again without any problem. So it's just a question of, let's say, when you put the salami. The mold can be also red. When I tell red, it's like Ferrari red. So when the mold is red, actually means there is something of wrong happened. There is some anaerobic bacteria growing inside the meat. And usually they are bacteria like botulism, you know, so something not really funny. But I tell you, it will be almost impossible for you to find why. These bacteria need a lot of water to grow. When we release the product, I talk about the Creminelli fine meat, but for everybody, because it's mandatory from USDA, you need to have less than 0.92 of the activity water, so the water you can find inside salami. With this kind of activity water, this bad guy can't grow. There is no way. So usually if you have a doubt, like because you see the mold start to be a little bit orange, it's not the red one, believe me. Will be, I tell you, it's impossible you're going to find this one. But just to tell you, you know. Oh, and then I find in this article in a newspaper, I think is Lucky Peach magazine, and it was really interesting because they take, we take out the name, we don't want to tell, this is mine, this is yours, but they actually take the mold and they do like a microbiotic analysis on the mold, and the conclusion was like, there is a lot of kind of artisanal salami. Usually when you see white, this kind of white is because you have a culture. So we can give culture to the meat to develop, to do the fermentation, but we can also spray some water with some bacteria inside to grow the perfect white mold. And usually it's this white you see right there. White mold, I don't want to tell you is fake, but actually is. And, but it's good, you know, at the end mold helps the salami. Why? Because mold is like a, you need to think like a tree with a root inside the salami. Mold eats acidity. So more mold you have on top of the salami, less acid will be in your salami, more sweet, so more pleasant to your palate. This is why I tell to everybody, don't take out the mold until the last second. Take out the mold before you eat the salami, you know, just peel, take out the casing with the mold and eat the salami. More the salami stays under the mold and more sweet will be the salami. And then they have the yellow one they call also petrified gold. Is more like the natural mold. Another things I like to show in this picture is like, I hear sometimes people tell, oh, the perfect salami need to be cylindric. Yeah, if you use synthetic casing, you can have a perfect cylindric salami, but in the artisanal way, like you use like natural casing, you need to find, I don't know, a cylindric cow with a perfect cylindric intestine to have a perfect cylindric salami, you know, it's almost impossible. So actually the shape of the salami is the shape of the casing. Sometimes there is no one like the other one. That means it's made with natural things. All tied by hand. This is important. Why? Because it's not just like, oh, my salamis, they are all tied by hand because it's cool. No, actually that means it's going in the hand of somebody capable to understand if the salami is good or not when he tie, and if he finds some imperfection, he's going to discard and go to with the next one. So the process to untie actually is more like let's say a quality process to be sure the salami is stuffed in the correct way with the exact intention you need. Not a little bit more, not a little bit less. And yeah, this one is the result. At the end, you see it's not cylindric. This one looks like, it's like a cutlet, a pork cutlet, and or with the same shape. The only things I want to tell you, because this is actually a question usually people ask me, is you see the ratio between lean and fat. Sometimes when you see a salami, you feel like it's really fatty and the other one is really lean. Most of the time it's a question of how you grind the salami. Let's say more you grind the salami like with big piece, more you see the fat. More you grind thin, less you see the fat. So let's say if you grind you're familiar, I think, with the Genoa salami, really thin grind, usually 50% in the fat is fat, but you don't have this kind of sensation because the pink of the lean, the red of the lean is going to cover everything. When you grind big, like this salami, in this salami there's 18% of fat, but it looks like it's more than 50. Why? Because it's just grind big, so you see the big piece inside. I think I talk too much. I'm Italian, and this is why. So I don't know if you guys have any other question. I can talk about salami all the day. So if you have a particular question, I will be happy to respond. Yeah.
In your opinion, has the regulation of use of commercial starter cultures all across the board in artisan salami, do you think that's created a homogeneous flavor, and like the way that you're differentiating is through either different breeds of pork or through the spices and salts and the curing you're doing? How do you feel about being required to use factory-made starter cultures?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, you know, I tell you, when I was in Italy, I don't use any starter culture. Let's say I go renegade, let's say this way. And I developed actually my starter culture. The salami stayed with the other one, so it was just again a transfer bacteria from one salami to the other one. Here in US it's mandatory, like you need to use a starter culture. I'm not, I need to be honest, I'm not so against. Like at the end it's like you have an insurance, you have a good start. Let's say this way. When you start a fermentation and you're not totally sure of what you do, you can develop really bad guy. And if you don't understand, you can have something like you eat and actually will be not really good. Let's say actually sometimes dangerous. Especially again from the picture I see, people send me picture and they usually, this is really fun. Usually they send me picture and I tell, oh look, I put this salami in the bathroom to age. You think it's a good place? Because it's really humid. And I tell, yeah, I don't know what you do in the bathroom, I know what I do in the bathroom. I don't know, it's probably it's the place I want to put my meat, but by the way, yeah, it's true actually, if you have the same culture, you need to be smart enough, let's say, to be able to develop your flavor. And actually it's really doable. It's really doable. Like, we can start probably 10 of us with the same starter culture, but aging and drying and use different humidity, different temperature, we are able to have 10 really, really different results. Yeah, if you go standard, like probably like, you know, like this amount of sugar, this amount of salt and everything, you probably have a similar result, but I still think it will be not so similar to tell like, oh, they're all the same. More I stay here in US and more I feel like it's a good policy. It's like you have an insurance, let's say this way. It's not so bad, especially again after the things I saw around. Thank you.
When I was growing up, my dad would always age sausages, and he would tell me that there'd be a white, crusting on the sausages. He would say, "Oh, it's just salt." Is it some of it salt, or is it actually just white mold?
Oh, the things around?
Yeah.
Usually it's mold, but I tell you, it's a good question because sometimes happens. Depends also the quality of the salami. I probably guessing your father was an Italian and was from the south of Italy, maybe? From?
Polish.
Ah, Polish. Oh yeah, makes sense. Yeah, because depends on the dryness. Sometimes you create this kind of, they look like crystal of salt around. The mold is not like fluffy, but it's more crystal. It's actually as a question of how much humidity you put in your aging room. Usually in the Italian way, North Italian way, we have a lot of humidity in our aging room, like let's say not less than 85%. So a lot. So the mold is really fluffy and not really any crystal. But if you stay, and I know people, they stay maybe more around 78, 80%. So you can develop this kind of crystal, and actually if you taste, they taste a little bit like salt, but it's more the way you age. So yeah, actually sometimes you can find this kind of crystal, and actually happens more than I think, probably. Yep.
Probably one or two more questions.
If you have, or...
You might have mentioned this earlier, but what's your family's history and where from Italy?
Oh, yeah. So I'm from Biella. It's a small town on the top west of Italy, close to the Alps, the Piedmont region. Piedmont region is I like to think about the Piedmont region is a good region for food and wine, especially. It's the region where Low Food actually was born in Turin, and I was born like 40 miles north of Turin. My family actually do this job forever. I think the first record we have about my family do this job is around the 14th century, so a little bit of time ago. But it's something really common in Italy. This is what I want to tell you. Like, you take the job of your father and you pass down the job to your son. It's something like in your DNA. This is what when you grow up, this is what you want to do. And I don't have any doubt in my mind. This is what I want to do when I grow up. And it's so fun because I recall my grandfather. Maybe in Italy, you don't know really well the name of some particular job. I recall my grandfather, plumber. You don't know what means plumber. If you told, in Italy actually is idraulico, but idraulico, what kind of word is this one? Like, it's not Italian. But the Rossi family, because the Rossi family, they always do this job forever. So when you need to talk about a plumber, you talk about Rossi. And everybody actually talk about the plumber, because the Rossi family, this is what they do forever. And this is probably what they're going to do forever. So again, it's a long time, something, but again, it's something of a little bit more common in the old world than here. Like, I have people, they work with me, with my father actually, probably for when they are kids until they want to retire. Like, they never change the work, they always work in the same company, and they are part of a big family, like, we are a big family. Yeah. And if you don't have any other question, I just want to conclude and thank you, everybody. Oh.
Can you explain the difference between?
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, we just had this conversation earlier.
Yeah.
Can you explain the difference between the use of nitrates, nitrite here in the States, and in Italy that the typical salami industry don't use those products?
Yeah. Yeah, and let's say this way. We need to do a big distinction between chemical nitrates and natural nitrates. Why? When you eat a salad, I think you guys eat a salad probably every day, you eat a ton of nitrates, especially in the spinach. I think spinach is is the vegetable in the natural with more nitrates inside. But is natural, and we talk about part 4 million, so a small part. Is totally different when you want to add chemical nitrates inside for different purpose. Nitrates help the fermentation, actually help the bacteria to start the fermentation. But it's different when you put, like, let's say, some part 4 million, because they are already inside your spice, the things you use, and actually help you to the fermentation, from when you add like gram or microgram or, you know, chemical stuff inside. So most of the time when you use a lot of nitrates and a lot of other chemical inside your meat, it's just because you want to be fast and you want to be sure, and you don't want to spend a lot of time, let's say, to check what you do. Let's say big company, what they do, they need to produce, I don't know, 1,000 pounds a day, I don't know, probably not 1,000, probably 100,000 pounds a day. And they need to be sure they stay inside this kind of parameter. They use some particular ingredients like the nitrates to help to stay inside this parameter. We know then nitrates help to keep a little bit the water inside, but they use also some other filler to keep the water inside. So at the end they sell you salami with more water inside, more water inside, and they're going to sell you water with the same price of the salami. So it's not so bad, it's not so smart, it's smart for this guy, let's say. It's a different approach when you're an artisan. You know you need some kind of ingredients to do the fermentation, but you don't want to add more, actually, to sophisticate too much the product. The things you want to develop is actually the flavor of the cured meat. I tell to everybody, when I do my stuff, I know there is some nitrates inside, totally natural, arriving from rosemary, arriving from celery. Right now, you know, celery is probably in the industry and also in the artisanal way is one of the flavor you put inside. Is one of the spice you put inside will contain more of these nitrates. But again, they are natural nitrates, and we talk about part 4 million. They help the final result. But I tell you, our salami, the salami we do, we are lucky if we lose 40% of the weight. The weight usually is more. So we don't do for the purpose we do for the purpose like they are already inside our spice we use, and we do for the purpose to start the fermentation. That's it. It's totally different. Like, we can talk about nitrates, but we can talk also about other ingredients like filler, like there is a lot of stuff you can put inside the salami, and actually for different purpose. I like when the salami is genuine and the label is clean, and there is like 4 or 5 ingredients inside the label, not 30. You know, I tell you all the time, I think people, they have 30 ingredients inside the label, on the label, they are genius. Because if I need to put 5 ingredients together, for me usually it's hard. Like, okay, I need to combine this one with the other one, what I can do. When they are 30, like, wow, they are good. But usually they are something who fix the color, then the things who fix the things who fix the color, then the things is going to make your shelf life 1.5 years, then you need to put the things who fix these things, and the other one, you know, and this is why at the end you have 30 ingredients. But genuinity, I'm an artisan, I'm a big fan of the artisan product. So they are genuine, taste is taste, you can like or not, but I tell you they are genuine. So thanks to everybody.